Today's conversation hit me in a way that I didn't really expect because I came into it thinking we were going to talk about growth, strategy, and how to build a successful podcast. But with today's guest, Braden Figueroa, aka B-Figgy, as everyone knows him, the co-host of the ever-exploding podcast, the 505 podcast, we actually got into something that was way deeper. The reality that as creators, we care way more about what we're doing than honestly anybody else does. So in today's episode, we dive into the why behind B-Figgy. Let's get into it. Man, I've been looking forward to this episode since I started to switch my niche outside of paintball. You know, it's like driving a cruise ship from the dock and you've got to start to move it. It takes a lot of work. But you were on my radar early on, and like the timing of this is just wild. Because I think either this week or last week, I saw in your story that you were starting to go through the same thing as me too, of almost switching that niche in a way or like making it a little bit bigger. Talk to me about that.
I think switching a niche is one of the hardest things to do because people feel like everyone is watching, and in reality, like no one is really watching. I think that it's a lot easier than people think, and I think that you naturally evolve and grow as a person. So the things that you're going to be interested in or want to talk about can shift and evolve and like open up in a way. I think as long as you know, if you're talking about, let's just use plants, and then you switch to paintball, the plant group isn't going to be interested in the paintball. But if you pivot just to one thing adjacent, you typically can grab a lot of the people who are interested in the first thing that you were speaking about to kind of move over to that second thing. But I think that, originally in our show, I have a podcast. I've been doing 200 something plus episodes of this pod for a little over 4 years, about to hit 5. But it originally started just, photo, video. That was all that we were talking about. And pretty soon I was like, there's just not so much I can teach about this topic. Like, I feel like I've taught everything there is about a camera or about how to get a job in this space. And so we kind of expanded a little bit. And I think that, we started chasing a little bit of the viewership, because as you're running a podcast, the way you make money off of it is with sponsorships, or you can sell things off the back end that like aligns with what you're talking about. And we're doing a lot of stuff with business. And so I'm like thinking, this is maybe the route we want to go. But actually, as of a few weeks ago, we talked with the team, and we really want to bring it back to the roots of where we started, and in more in the creative space. So getting, worrying less about the viewership, going very deep on a topic and kind of wanting to dominate a sector, because I think business is super fun and interesting to talk about. But there's only so many people that I think have interesting brands themselves in business world. I could probably count them, like in 1 year I could snap my fingers and we could have everyone on. So we're thinking more of like, okay, well, who do we know a lot of, who are out here in LA, who's easier to come on? And the higher up you go in a certain space, the more of a pain in the ass it is to get guests on, as you're figuring out probably. So, I feel like we've gotten to a place where we feel like we're in this like no man's land of podcast world, where you're big enough to where you have money coming in, and it's like, it's a business, but then you also are like trying to go after these A-list guests, and they're super busy and they're like booked for 6 months. So getting them on is just a pain. And so trying to figure out like, how do we make this sustainable? How is it something that we can keep doing every week? And I think more solo episodes is how we're going to solve that, Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. I love that. That's so aligned with what I'm doing now. Like obviously the 505 is a lot bigger than this podcast, but I'm already starting to see like, man, how can I sustain this long term? And I think the focus that I'm doing is mixing in episodes like this, but I'm also doing a lot of like kind of raw behind the scenes vlogs of like, what is it like to be a creator that's going through this? So you're getting like a real clean, polished look here. And then I'm also, I've got my camera, like I'll just grab it and talk around. That way you're getting a behind the scenes creator or behind the scenes look of me as well. So like, as this grows, I always see other creators that I love. I'm like, man, I really wish I saw more behind the scenes of what they're going through. And so I'm trying to document that. So it's so cool to hear like you and I are kind of aligned with like where we're shifting our brands in a way.
Yeah. I think that it just matters a lot more to us than it does to anybody else. I think that people aren't really paying that much attention as much as we think they are. And I think it's relieving in a way to just know, like, I can do this if I want to do this, if this is what's going to make it possible for you or me or whoever to keep creating. I think that's the most important thing. So looking at it from that lens, not like, well, will the money dip or will the views dip, or, you know, that's a really easy game to like get caught up in. But it's like, well, if I don't like it, it doesn't matter if the money's coming in or not. It's like, if I'm not enjoying it, there's no future for us to keep doing this thing. You know, I think sustainability is like number one most important thing. Can you keep doing it every week, and is it sustainable?
Yeah, like I think that's the number one advice for any creator, right? Because if you're not happy doing it, you're going to burn out and stop eventually. So like that has to be number one. Let's dive into like more of the pod specific questions, because I found you guys, I don't know, probably about a year ago, and I was like, man, these are just two dudes. Like the background looks sick. And the more episodes I watched, I was like, I feel like I'm just in the room with you. And I don't think I've felt that taking in YouTube content since like the Casey Neistat era, where like I genuinely felt like connected to you guys. So how do you juggle like being natural when the camera turns on versus just who you are as a person?
It's a really sweet compliment. I appreciate that. But I think when I first started YouTube over 10 years ago, you look at what's successful on the platform, and what was successful at that time was like the Logan Paul, very animated, very loud, very out there. But, you know, if you like in anything, if I wanted to get good at baseball, I look at like, who are the professional baseball players? Like, what do they do? So I did the same thing with YouTube, right? I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, this is the most successful person on the platform, or these are the top 10 most successful people in these different industries. Well, that's what I have to do. I have to like emulate that. So I go back and look at these horrific videos that I made, and, you know, I was trying to play a character, and it's just not sustainable to pretend to be someone you're not, unless that's your MO. I mean, I don't know how long someone could keep that up, but I felt exhausted by it. The views were terrible. Like no one was watching because it wasn't who I was. I think I also think that in a lot of YouTube specific brands, people that are the tip top 1% of all those sectors, you can look at what they're doing. But a lot of the times it's very hard to like copy and paste that onto another creator. Like you can take a format, you can take something like that, but like taking exactly what they do is very difficult to replicate. Like usually creators are very unique and like in that way. Whereas like I'll meet someone and I'm like, there's just no way that someone could replicate like what this person does, because this is just so one of one, you know?
Yeah.
You could steal their filming background and their camera and all that good stuff, or how they edit, but stealing like who they are and what makes them them is very difficult to do. So I would focus on instead, you know, what your interests are, what your unique perspective is, like what is your superpower? Is it talking? Is it writing? Is it camera work? Like what is the thing that separates you from the other 1,000 people in the space in your realm? And I think that when you do that, it becomes a lot easier. I was already, I would say, a good BSer. Like my whole thing is I tell stories, and like that's me and my friend group. Like I'm good at talking. That's my thing. So it just kind of fell into my lap where I was like, wow, this podcast thing is pretty fun. We do this already. You just kind of stuck a microphone in front of my face and a camera. Like nothing really changed, you know? And I think that I've gotten much better at podcasting and much better at communicating and speaking over 300 episodes. You know, I had a pod before the 505 pod. So, you know, I've done, I think, over 260 episodes of podcasting now, pretty much every week for however long that is. And you get much better. You get really good at doing it if you do it over, you know, over and over and over again. And you start to look at who are the best people and just try to take like one little thing instead of like a complete copy paste, because it's really difficult to do that. But you can take usually one or two things from every single person who's like very good at the thing. And if you put it into what you're doing, you'll be dramatically better. And if you keep consistent with it.
Yeah, that's the secret sauce right there. And it, like the timing is wild. This morning I posted a reel talking about that exact same thing, where I feel like a lot of creators, we look to other creators for motivation and inspiration, but there's a fine line where like, ooh, I want to go replicate that. But then when you do that, you start to like get away from who you are as a person. It's like that it's so razor thin of that inspiration towards losing yourself. So it's cool to see that you've been able to figure out like that secret sauce for yourself and still stay natural. Did you ever notice a shift? Because I think your career, you started behind the lens, right? Like you were recording all the content for the Lakers, doing a lot of that content. And then over the past 200 some odd episodes, you've been in front of the camera. So like, have you ever seen a shift there in your personality?
No, because I always wanted to be in front of the camera. I just saw that I saw in college that the camera was going to be a vehicle to be able to get me where I wanted to go. It wasn't like I'm a cinephile and I love filmmaking. While I do, like, I really do enjoy like the camera stuff. I'm a nerd with the camera stuff, like all the tripods and the gear. Like, I'm a gearhead for sure, but I more so like I'm like a 50-50, 60-40 split business to creative stuff. Like I just found I was like I really am interested in business. This content stuff seems like this is going to take off and be so important. And no one in my circles, at least in college, I felt maybe one person that I knew, my buddy Kyle, my buddy Sharif, two of them, like no one else was thinking about social. I think how we were thinking about it in the sense that I was like, this is the play. Like people are making so much money doing this stuff. And everyone around us thought it was just like, oh, they're just stupid YouTubers. Like this is not a career. I'm like, no. I'm seeing these guys make millions of dollars. I know that this is like a profitable thing. I don't know how they're making money yet because I couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, they got brand sponsorships and some of them have brands, but I was like, how does all of this make into their like ecosystem of what they do? And YouTubers were making like massive 9-figure businesses off of the back ends of their platform. So it was fascinating to me to see in those early, this is like 10 years ago. And I was like, well, I'm going to try YouTube, but it wasn't getting any traction. So I'm like, well, I know that this camera, like, well, is a skill. Like the people that they're hiring are really good at filming and editing. So I should get really good at that. And maybe I can leverage that later on to meet more people in the space, work with people, like get a job. And then someone offered to pay me. It was $950 to do a sorority recruitment video. And that's when I knew I could make money with it till like the day I died. I was like, there's something here. If they're willing to pay me to do this. And I was just making YouTube videos at the time and someone had saw it and was like, hey, what if we did something like that for like our sorority? And I'm like, damn, you'll pay me to make this video? Like I would have done this for free. Not for them, but like I'm doing this for free. I'm not been paid anything to do it. And that was just kind of this light bulb moment of there's so many ways to make money with this camera and it can take me kind of all over the world if I get really good at it. And it did. Like it took me to some of the craziest places I've ever seen. Took me to NBA championship, NBA playoffs, Oregon Ducks Final Four run. It was and I kind of owe it all to using a camera. And I think the camera's kind of taken me places I never thought it would go.
That's wild. I almost look at the camera in a way as like, for creators, it's like a best friend in a way, right? It's a stuffed animal. Like we take it with us everywhere. And at some point it becomes like a comfort. Like you feel weird if you don't have it around you. That's so cool to hear your story. Cause I've been thinking that same thing. I was like, man, how can I make this bigger? And I'm working on my first brand deal right now. And with the brand, I'm like, I would have done this for free. Like, this is wild that you're going to pay me to do that. And so it's just yeah, for sure. I know that. When did the podcast like become real for you? Like I think a lot of podcasts start off with like, hey, this is kind of cool. We're talking to friends and some small people. But like, when did that shift become, holy shit, I've got something here?
I think the first episode that I knew that we had something special was when we had a guy by the name of Nate Shot on. He owns 100 Thieves, and he came on our show. And I believe within like an hour, it had already had over like 1,000 views. And I was like, this is crazy. Like 1 hour, 1,000, this is nuts. Like, I don't even know how much bigger you could get from this.
You peaked.
Yeah, because in the early days, I remember, on the first pod that I did, I could get about 150 or 250 in a week. That was about what it would shake out to be like in a week. And so I knew, I was like, well, there's 200 people here that are like always coming to hang out with us, even though this isn't really growing. Like, because we weren't doing any short form, and short form is how you grow a pod. But I'm like, there's 250 people that are here. That's a pretty big group in an auditorium. And then it was about the same for the first like handful of episodes. And then word just starts to spread. It's like it's just one person tells another person, it just ripples all the way down. And that episode getting like 1,000 views in an hour, I was like, well, there's something here. And if you in theory did this every time, and I think his episode ended up getting like 50,000 views or something, which was
Wow.
ridiculous at that time period. I was like, if you do this every time, you got a show. Like this is a real show.
Yeah.
And I think it just showed us the power of someone's personal brand. And if they have, people that are tuning into them every single week and they come from YouTube specifically, how powerful that is to then come to like your channel. But if they're really big on Instagram, I think we saw that they don't really transfer over. Just because someone has a following there, like that group is not primed to watch someone for like an hour plus or like even 20 minutes plus. So I think that was a very interesting moment and like a big learning experience of like what is possible in podcast land and the power of someone's social following and what it can bring, because it gave our every video too around it, like the one after that gets a huge lift, the one before that gets a lift, the whole channel gets like a cumulative 10 extra thousand views just off like one of them doing really well. So I think that was a wild moment, because I think there's been streaks of time where like we could have 2 or 3 episodes or even 4 or 5, and you're like just getting the shit kicked out of you in the face. You're like, these are not working. And then all it takes is one video to do super fucking well and it kicks up everything. I talked to, I'm not going to name the pod, but it's like top 3 biggest pods in the world, someone that works on one of these teams. And they were explaining that 80% of the views for the year come from 20% of the guests. So really made me rethink like just a show in general, and like any of these shows, Jimmy Fallon's show, like people that are like doing TV, a majority of their viewership, like yes, they'll have like a group that comes every single time, whatever that is, 1,000,000 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, but the bigger like lift to the channel or to the show or the YouTube or whatever is going to come from about 10 to 20% of the people that you have on. So you're really thinking for the year, like, who are my 10 people who are like dying to talk to? Fantastic. Okay, well, we're really going to try to get those 10. But then you really just need to weather the storm to keep fighting, to like show up another day, if that makes.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I've got a what I would call like my unicorn list of like people that I would love to have on that I've been trying to tackle. We talked about one of the names before this, and it's like if I can't get them on, like I've got to have other people that I'm working on as well. So you almost have to do double the work while you're like chasing your unicorns in a way.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
100%. Yeah, you never get to shut off. Like every time I'm talking to someone, I'm like, oh, they could be a good guest for the pod.
But there, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you go from Nate Shot that like helped explode the pod, and now I think in the last year, like you've been traveling all over. Even you were with what some people would call like the goat or the unicorn, like Gary V. Like, talk to me about that, because I think some people would hit that point and be like, "I've made it. I'm good. I'm checking out."
Gary was a really cool episode, and he's had a really big impact on my life from afar. I had never met him before that episode, and our on the flight, we get on the flight, a Delta flight at LAX. I'm not really checking my phone. Plane gets canceled. They're like, there's something wrong with the wing. We're sitting there for like another hour, and then they cancel it. I'm like, shit. Okay, so we get off. Whatever. I'm looking. There's like 3 other flights that day to JFK, but they're all full. And there was one later in the day that had like a couple seats on it. So I get off, and then I see an email like he has to cancel. Like he's got to cancel the pod. I'm like, well, we're on our way right now. What do you mean he has to cancel? They're like, if you can get here by 11 o'clock tomorrow, we can do the show. But that's it. That's the only window of time. And I'm like, I don't even know if we're going to be able to get on this flight. So I called Delta. They're able to get us on 2 seats, very, very back of the plane, like last row on the plane. We get on, land at like midnight or 1 in the morning. I think we got to our hotel at like 1:30 in the morning, and woke up super early, got caffeine, got a bagel, and went over there and did that episode. I think it was really cool. It was a huge lift for the channel, but I think it was even more stress and pressure after, because now you're constantly trying to beat the episodes, and like how they do. And I think it's a really dangerous game to get caught up in, is like trying to win, I guess, in quotes, like each episode. and it's not really possible because there's been conversations that I'm like, this is the best conversation we had, but then the viewership doesn't reflect that. So I think all you can do as a creator, whether it's short form or long form, is like put your best effort into whatever the thing may be, and let the chips go, because there's not. It's just a very dangerous game getting caught up in like, did this get this views that we thought it would, or did this get the likes that we thought it would get, and it really just doesn't correlate to like how good it was. Because there's been episodes that I'm like, this was 100% the, like, this was the best one we've done, or this was of the top 5 that we've ever done, and it probably performs like one of the worst. So there's no correlation to that, which really I think sucks and is hard to wrestle with, because you could say this is the best one ever and it just doesn't reflect that. So
Yeah, I think as a creator, one of the hardest things that we go through is like in that moment, you've got to remove the ego, right? Because like you put in all this time and energy into getting a guest on, researching, recording, all the post edit. And then when it doesn't do well, like that's where a lot of creators can go through that ego struggle. And then now they're starting to grasp for straws of like, well, what does this mean for me? And that's where you can start looking to other people and change who you are.
yeah,
So like it's cool that you're able to do that and look at it from that lens.
barely.
It's always that constant struggle though. At what point did you realize like people weren't just listening to the podcast and they were paying attention like to you? You know, I think every podcast goes through that where you had listeners and now you've got the rocks, right? Where like you've got that dedicated audience that doesn't matter who you have on, they're showing up for you.
I think maybe after, no, you know what? I realized it when I was working in the NBA, because I would be going to these cities and I would see like people, I'd see rocks like on the road, some people that were like working for these teams, and be like, yo, like, I'd see someone look at me and I'm like double take and I'm like, is my hair fucked up or something? Like, what's going on? But they were like, oh, I like your show. I'm like, that's crazy that I'm meeting people on the road that like listen to the show. So that was really cool. And if you think, I mean, if you really think about it, like that is like the most targeted group of where they would probably be. Like I was working the NBA, I'm on the road, like I meet people that are doing that stuff too. So that was really cool. And I think it was just more motivation to like keep going, that like real people were listening. Cause like you see it behind a screen, you just see the numbers. It's like, the other day we were talking, like one of our episodes on audio had gotten like 2K, which is a little lower than what it had done in like in like 4 or 5 days. And I was like, it's really interesting, because I was like, we could barely break 100, and now we're kind of like bitching about it hitting 2,200 or something. And it's just like perspective just shifts, and like a bigger creator would hear that and be like, that's the worst episode we'd ever put out if it hit that number, and I think it's just that was probably one of the cooler moments. They're just like meeting people on the road that were doing it too. Or like I'd be in a city and someone would hit me up and be like, yo, I'm a fan of the pod, I'm here, this is where you gotta go, like go eat here. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it humanizes what you do. It turns that little blue line on YouTube Studio into like a real person. Let's shift a little bit and talk about the cohort. Like that's been a really cool process, I think, to see from this side of the lens. Is the last year you guys have really started to focus on helping other creators, kick off their journey and like really dive into this as a full-time career. Talk to me about how that process has been going so far.
Yeah, we've been coaching. I've been coaching creatives for about like 8-ish years. Like since I was at the Lakers, when I was like getting out of there, people were hitting me up and asking for help with getting a job in sports, and I was helping them do that. And then when I left, I've kind of, I think, graduated from a videographer to like owning an agency, and we work with these bigger brands. Like in a perfect world, they're all Fortune 1000. They are not all Fortune 1000, but like that's what we would, hope to, like next year, like that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
And I remember, just being like a videographer with a camera and how difficult it was to pitch price and just sell my work. And that was the hardest part, not like making a video, because most people are photo, video, they're really good at making a video. It's the actual like business side of it, selling them your work, pricing it out, pitching them. That's like the difficult part that people don't really talk about. So that's what we focus on in this like 6-week cohort that we do. We've probably done like maybe 6 or 7 of them, I think, by now, something like that. But it's been great. It's so fun to shatter someone's beliefs over like what they think is possible. Because at least when I was younger, starting out, I did not know how much people were getting paid. And I think that that's what's cool about being in a group like that is you get to see like, okay, well, Mark just did this and he's in Iowa and it was for a pressure washing company. Well, there's a shit ton of pressure washing companies where I'm at. And like, I wouldn't mind shooting that or catching a bag doing that. So I know I can like replicate what he's doing in my state. And I think that that is just priceless to be able to see and know what others are doing. So like, not only are you getting coaching and teaching from me and Kostas, but you also are learning from others in this, like some of them have went on to just make ridiculous money. Like we had a guy who hit us up. This was like last week. He's like, I was making 38K a year as a banker and I hated my job. He had a kid, another on the way. And this year he's going to do like over 180K with his video business. And he's in a small town in Arizona. His name's Daniel. And he's just kicking ass. Like, it's insane, you know? So he's paid off his house. Like, he's making really good money. And it's just wild, you know? So it's wild what's possible, I think. But people see that and they're like, well, is that going to work for me? And I think, you know, it all just depends. It just depends on the kind of person you are. I think like, we have all the information in the world at our fingertips now, even ever, like more than ever. So everything is out there. It's more so, I think, like, are you a doer or are you not, you know?
Yeah. I love that because I've been talking to my wife about that. I think a lot of people, they want that. They want that Daniel success story, but it's like, how do you turn that couch time into like actual time to reinvest in your life? You can still sit on the couch and do that, but have a laptop in front of you, have an iPad in front of you, and like work on creating some type of business or jump into the cohort to better yourself to get out of your situation.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's got to be wild to like, has that sunk in that you are literally changing the course of people's lives? Like that guy could have gone on to been a banker for the rest of his life and had to pick up a second job. You changed his life.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, but I mean, Daniel and I are tight, so like we text, you know, throughout the year, and I get updates on what he's doing and jobs that he's working on. So we became friends from from him finding me online, you know, and so I think that's it's really cool because like it wasn't something that I thought of when I started doing this and realized like, oh wow, there's a real impact that you even a couple $1,000s a month to someone like typically changes people's lives. Like if you take wherever most people are at with your income, you know, whether 3K all the way up, like $2 extra $1,000 a month does a lot for most people in the country. And to know that I think that I've figured out a way for most people to come in and, you know, and get that result and get a few more clients, like it does translate to a pretty ridiculous feeling. And if they can keep replicating it and keep going up the ladder and working on their business, they get to a place where, you know, they're more comfortable. And I think it's a priceless feeling.
Yeah, for sure. So like I think you said you're 6 or 7 cohorts in by now.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
What's the next evolution of it? Because I'm sure you're already thinking of like where you want to take it.
Yeah. I'm just really enjoying, honestly, like where it's at with this group. I think that we want to offer something for the higher income folks, like later on, that kind of graduate and are like the Daniels of the world who like want more help getting to a different dollar figure or like making more of an agency rather than just like a smaller team. It just depends though. I really enjoy the videographers because that was me. So it's easy for me to help them because I was like, this was me for a very long time. So I understand everything that's going on in their brains. And I think that when you're thinking about like running a business or like who you help and who you serve, if you've been through it, it's so much easier to be able to like help that group, you know, because I'm basically just teaching myself 1,000 different times, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like you always hear like, hey, what advice would you give to yourself if you were younger? And like you're literally making a career out of
like running it back. I'm like, let's just keep doing it, you know.
Yeah, little B-Figgy, this is what I'm telling you over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's transition one more time and start to wrap up with, I want to know more of like behind the scenes as a creator. That's I think what makes this podcast for me so special is I bring people on like you and I get to see a behind the curtains look. So what's something running a podcast that people may not see about you that you think would surprise them?
I think about running a podcast. I think just about how many people are involved. We have someone that's helping us with clips. We have someone that's helping with YouTube packaging. We have, obviously to do the episodes. The amount of research that goes into just like one guest is pretty crazy. I think I end up watching like hundreds of their videos on YouTube. I'll steal transcripts from their YouTube videos. I'll read their books. I'll go and watch every Instagram video. I'll go back to the very base of like their first ever post on social and just kind of like watch the evolution of the person and kind of where a shift happens. And I think it's really interesting. It's like professional stalking, which is kind of funny, but that's like literally what we do. I'm like stalking this person once they're approved to come on. It's like, here we go. I'm going to only be consuming their stuff for like the next few weeks, but I like it, and I think the guests really appreciate the level of detail in the stuff that we end up finding.
Yeah, that's what I love too. I love watching your show and other podcasts, and for this one, I think like one of the biggest compliments you can give any podcast host is, "Oh wow, that's a good question," or
Yeah.
"I haven't asked that before."
Yeah.
Um,
That's definitely the golden nugget if someone says that.
yeah, or not the, "Oh, I actually just answered this on this other podcast last week." It's like, oh shit. What's a moment where you potentially like thought about stopping doing this, if there ever was one? Like, oh shit, maybe this is too much.
I haven't really ever thought about stopping the pod or like creator stuff because it's how I make money. So it's not like I really don't have an option at this point. I think maybe like way later on in life, but I don't know. I really like making videos. Like I enjoy it. I think that even like if you gave me $100 million today, I would still probably make videos. I would just not have a boss anymore, and I could, because at the end of the day, like, while I am my own boss, I also still have we have like 12 bosses at all times that we're like, dealing with. So I would probably just make it about my passions and things that I'm interested in. But yeah, I don't think I would ever not make videos. I really just enjoy it. And there's something very satisfying about like pressing export that I can't seem to put a finger on, but like that is a very satisfying feeling to be done and then be like, boom, this thing is done. Like this is an insane video.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. Like it's the export for me. It's when I hit publish in YouTube Studio. It's like, oh wow, I cannot wait for like this to go out there because I'm so excited of the whole process. From the guests saying yes to the research that goes into it to some of the edits. Like it's a way to just feel proud over and over again. We touched on this early on in the episode, but I want to go a little deeper. You had talked about you're starting to transition a little bit more into storytelling in a way, right? Like I think last week you had the episode where you and Kostas did about Nike, which takes an insane amount of research. Are we going to see more of that style mixed in?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to do more solo apps. Kind of like I was telling you earlier, it's just a lot easier to do episodes with just the two of us because we're traveling a lot. I'm gone. Like I'm about to leave on a flight in 25 minutes. And then I come back for a day. We're gone to Miami for a week. Like I'm not here a ton. So it's hard. Then you also are dealing with like my schedule, another person's schedule, Kostas's schedule, our client's schedule. It's just a lot to be like, you're dealing with like 16 different schedules at once. Yeah. And then if a shoot gets moved, that's like of utmost priority is like, so it makes it a lot easier to be able to just like, hey, there's two of us, we can do solo episodes and this isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, and that's cool because I think that's almost like a docu style, right? Where like people want to tune into a story, but then they also get to hear some of their favorite creators tell that story of what the yeah. If you had to go all the way back and like restart, would you niche down and do the same thing, or would you try to just like balloon a lot bigger and not lock yourself into something?
No, I think this advice goes for any creator, any level, any style. It's in the very beginning, you do have to pick a thing. Like Alex Earl was her Get Ready With Me. That's like how it started. And then it blossoms into all this other shit, her doing vlogs, her doing, whatever, all the YouTube and all this other content, but like it blossoms from one thing. Colin and Samir, big podcasters. It blossomed from talking about creators, and now it's a little bit more broad. Diary of a CEO was only business people, and now I'd argue that his channel is not really about business at all anymore. It's like more health, AI. At a point you literally run out of shit to talk about, or you've talked to every single notable person in a particular world, and then you're like, well, if we want to keep doing this, we do have to like broaden out, which is why I think that the business stuff is like interesting to live on our channel. And it does have a place. I think that how we were doing it may not have aligned as much. And like, I realized that, and that's just like part of the game, is like hindsight is 2020. So, I think in the very beginning, it's very important to like pick something, some realm that you are going to stay within. If I keep going back to plants because I have plants, but it would be, if I was wanting to make content about plants, that was it. It's like plants, this is the thing. And then as it gets going, I can broaden it out and bring it into like, I could do a vlog with the plants, or or whatever the heck the thing may be. But in the very beginning, I think it's a lot easier to just like, this is the thing. You know what to expect every time I come back to this person's page. I think that like creators aren't one dimensional. So like, that's where this gets tricky, is they want to talk about, I have this interest, or I have this interest. It's like, you can have those interests. You should just go make a different page or something, B-Figgy plants or something like that. It'd be weird if my entire Instagram, I just kept throwing reels that were like about my plants. You'd be like, I'm not here for the plants. So, like, granted, there's a group that's definitely interested in that, but the vast majority probably aren't. Like, it would be better off for me to make my own separate thing that is about the plants.
Yeah. So to have different accounts on Instagram, would you do the same thing for YouTube? Because I that's like a truck versus car. Some people like, yes, have different.
YouTube is just so hard that I think that most people can't even do one well. That I think that it's just too hard. Like I've yet to meet someone that I'm like, you're so fantastic at this, you should do this other thing. Like, it's kind of like in the realm of, oh, well, your business, a lot of people do this. I've fucking done this myself. Your business starts doing really well, and you're like, well, we should do this other thing. Well, it's like, well, no, we should just fucking do what's working and do it 17x, and then we'll make way more money, and we'll be like, that makes more sense. Yeah. But when you're in it, you're like almost bored of the thing you're doing. So the logical thing in your head is like, we should change it up a little bit. And it's just not how it goes. You really just can 10x down on the thing that you're doing that's already working, and be more successful with that.
Yeah, gosh, you're just dropping gold on this podcast. I appreciate the advice. I've got one more question for you, because I know I want to get you out of here so you can catch that flight.
I still got time. I still got a little time.
Oh, sweet. All right, we'll go a few more. 10 or 15 years from now, where do you see yourself as a creator, and where do you see the podcast going?
I hope it's just something that we can keep doing every week. I think the numbers will lie where they lie. I think the only thing that I can control is continuing to show up and experiment, and not just have the thing that got us to where we're at be the thing that keeps going. Because I think in every creator's lifespan on the internet, there comes a time where the thing that got you to where you are won't work anymore, or there's no appetite for it. And if you don't experiment, you'll never know. The day comes, you feel like a failure. When I think in reality, every single month we should be like experimenting with something and seeing if it has any sort of legs to stick, and not getting down when something doesn't work the first time. Because many people that I talk to, they're very successful creators, they'll try something once and they'll be like, nah, I have more of an inclination that this will keep going. They'll do it again, maybe a third time, maybe the fourth time is when it hits. And then, you found it, but you could have went off the first two pieces of data and be like, well, this isn't going to work, when maybe it just took 4 times or 5 times for it to like kind of catch on to your group. So I try not to get as wrapped up in the numbers, because you might have something that doesn't do as well, but 12 people were like, this was my favorite thing ever. And then you're like, well, that means that there's more people that are out there just like those 12, And typically where there's 12, there's 1,200, and where there's 1,200, there's 12,000. So I think that it's really easy to like look at something as a one-off and say like this didn't work, but in reality it could have worked if you just kept doing it and kept trying it.
So like you just explained me, I think, how I live my life in a nutshell. To like summarize that, it's be consistent, like do everything and stay consistent with it. But then the other thing that drives me to my core is I don't want to get to a spot in my life where I look back and regret and have that, oh shit, what if question. And so like whenever I have an idea, I always try to go after it. I think that's one of the worst things we could ever do is you can't replicate it. You can't go back and change that time. So like if you want to do something, go try it.
Definitely, 100%.
If you're open to it, I understand if you won't. Who's like maybe 3 or 4 like unicorn guests that you guys would love to have on in the next few years?
I think Sirhan would be really cool. Ryan Sirhan, real
Yeah,
estate, he would be amazing. I think. I'm trying to think of dream guests. Hmm.
I know you've got a list somewhere locked in your phone of like these are the
Somewhere,
ones.
I definitely do. He's like at the top of my mind because I've been trying to talk to Ryan for like quite a bit of time. I think some of the bigger directors I think would be really cool. Like Christopher Nolan would be sick. I think he'd be very fun to interview and hear his take on his new film that's coming out. Um, I'm blanking on a lot. Oh, Stephen Bartlett would be sick. I'd really want to interview Stephen Bartlett. I think he'd be very cool.
Yeah,
Those are top three for sure.
yeah. Oh gosh, like lock me in for those episodes. Those would be
Yeah,
killer.
soon.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. You've heard it here first, maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
If the podcast blew up tomorrow, right? Like
Mm.
let's say an episode. Actually, you dropped one an hour ago, I think.
Mm.
Let's say this podcast it goes off, million views next week or two. What's one thing that you would change, and what's one thing that you would keep consistent from trying to grow the podcast to replicate that?
I I don't really think the podcast world is rocket science. It feels like to me and from people that I've spoken to, it's very dependent on if you're a guest-based show, you have to get on bigger and bigger guests to
Yeah,
keep growing the show. To distribute it, you can distribute it on social, which is what we already do. We post on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube Shorts and YouTube. So there's not like much I would necessarily change if something popped. I think I could have more people that to help with things, but as far as like how we do it, I don't think there's a crazier, better, more efficient way to do it. I think that it's just about staying in the game. I think that's like the hardest part about being a creative is just keeping in the arena and not like taking a month off when that's really easy to do.
yeah. Relevancy is like one of the number one things in what we're doing for sure.
And I think creators always have like they have a peak and then they have a valley. You
Yeah,
know, I've rarely seen creators like surge down and come back.
yeah,
Most of them don't do that. I don't think really any of them that I've watched that are very successful have done that. Have came all the way up where they're like a peak of viewership, dropped off, and then came back up. Is very, very rare.
yeah.
I maybe can think of like one off the top of my head that like keeps relevant when they fall off and like come back. But I think you really have to stay in the arena because as soon as you take a break, it's not like any other job where I could just go get another job or I could just come back. Unless you're Casey Neistat or David Dobrik,
Oh yeah.
the going away and coming back doesn't work for people, you know.
It's
So
almost like a secret sauce for those two guys.
yeah, exactly. They're like, I can go away and come back and I have elite viewership, but very rare.
Yeah, and then it pops off even more.
Yeah.
Um, two more questions. This second to last one is with all like the AI talk, right, where everyone is craving more real content. I think we're calling it YAP nowadays. Do you have more of a pull to give more behind the scenes look into like what you're doing? You know, more stories, content, more maybe it's a vlog where you're showing more of the day to day life.
Yeah, I've vlogged for 10 years. Like I like that format a lot. I think that it'll see a resurgence with AI content being a thing, but I'm not too worried about like battling versus AI content. I think if you're good, you will stand out. Like that is That's the barrier. Good stuff will break through no matter if you have 100 followers or 100,000. Like, I think that's the cool part about where we're at right now is it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It is who makes the best video and who can get people to stick around. Like, I've seen accounts with 1,000 followers blow up with one video, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think that I'm not too worried about it in that regard.
I think what's really cool about your answer there is knowing how big of a sports fan you are. Like I could have removed that question and said, how do you tell a sports team to replicate a winning formula? And what you just said works for them too.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that we've already been doing for years in the sports world.
Yeah, exactly.
My last question, and I think this is really the sauce of my podcast, is why I love people love the guests that I have on, is like, what's the why behind you? Like, what's the stuff that fuels you to keep going or drive you to keep showing up every week?
What drives me to keep showing up every week? I think it's just a constant, like, trying to always be a little bit better. I think that I'm heavily competitive, but really competitive with myself and with seeing just what's possible. I think that it keeps me up at night, the thought of, like, am I wasting this, like, what I was given right now, am I wasting this potential? And that just, like, forces me to want to try to get better, like, every day in all aspects of the things we're doing. And especially in business, it's very trackable. Like, your bottom line is what you're trying to keep growing, like, every single month and every single year. So it's very easy to, like, to track that and gamify, what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I really like business. I really like being in the arena of business. And I think that there's so much that has, like, impacted my life, from learning business and from starting my own company. Like, I had a company when I was like 19 and in college, and I was making a little bit of money here and there. But I remember there was, like, 1 month that I was able to, like, pay my rent, and I was like, yo, mom, you don't got to pay my rent this month. And that was a very cool feeling to just, like, know that, damn, like, and I know other people have, like, a way harder situation. They don't go to college and people are paying their rent. I get that. But, like, I wasn't paying my rent in college, and being able to, like, have a month or two where I'm like, I just made a couple $1,000 from this camera. It was a very cool feeling to know that there's something here. I can keep doing this. This is a career path that I can look down, and, like, it's not just like a fake job. It has legs. And I think the big thing, though, yeah, that drives me, I think, is just, like, trying to get better.
Gosh, what a great answer. I don't know if you've thought about it, but I think if you haven't, you should. You would do very well with telling your story in written format, like a book, like a short memoir, because you're connecting the business world, the sports world, and the creative world. And, like, those are three pieces that just blend beautifully together. And with your journey, I think that would do really well in a story.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Well, enjoy your trip.
All right, wait. Let me get a photo before we get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Boom. Let's go. Bang. Cool.
Awesome. Well, to everyone else, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Shellda podcast, and I'll catch you next time.
See you guys. Peace.